Well, Larry Goldberg has spent the last week traversing the country again, yet again, in his little Cybertruck. You can't really say little Cybertruck. It doesn't make any sense at all.
It's not little.
It's not,
It's a lot of things, but it's not little.
not little. And back and forth from South Carolina to Texas with, I think,
North
some,
Carolina, please.
oh, are you North Carolina too? I always get confused about that
The
border.
Research Triangle Park is bang slap in the middle of North Carolina.
Okay, all right, okay.
Well, we're slightly north, but okay.
Slightly. All right. Yeah, I'll have to get my map straight on all that.
South Carolina is south of North Carolina. You may be amazed to discover.
This may be something we can agree on, Larry. Okay. All right. So here's my first question, though. You had a choice when you left for Texas. You had brand new, absolutely slap brand new Model 3s.
Yeah.
You still have a Model X?
No, I changed the Model X for the Model 3.
Oh, you did. Okay. And so
My
you,
wife had a Model 3 and
yeah,
we changed it for a
right,
brand new model, for a refreshed Model
right.
3. And thank goodness we did because it's a beautiful,
Beautiful.
beautiful car.
Yeah, yeah, yeah.
I was so impressed with that car. And I thought, I don't need the Model X
Right,
anymore. I was keeping the Model X anyway as a kind of as a car versus the truck.
right.
But I was so impressed with the quietness and the beautiful ride of this Model 3. I thought, if I'm going to keep a second car, I mean, who needs a second? I mean, it's so stupid, really. Anyway, I thought if I'm going to keep a stupid second car, I love the X. Don't get me wrong. I love the X. I love, and we would go out to dinner with friends and they'd love those captain seats and the quietness of the ride and the smoothness of the ride and everything's beautiful. But that Model 3 was kind of next level.
All right. So my
I
question,
changed it for a Model 3, yeah.
you've been in all, you also owned an S at one point, right?
No,
Oh, you've
never
never
owned
owned an
an
S.
S.
Okay. All right. So you've owned everything but an S. But right now, at this immediate moment, you have the two most recent models because the new Model Y is not out yet. So you have the two most recent models. You had a choice. You decided to take the Cybertruck. Right now, there's a lot of discussion, lots of articles being written about Cybertruck sales being slow or demand not being there. And so it occurred to me that there's almost nobody I could ask in the entire world with so much experience in a model in the Cybertruck. I mean, so many miles of travel in the Cybertruck to be able to say, "Don't worry, guys, it'll happen," or something like that.
The Cybertruck, I selected to drive the Cybertruck to Texas and back. Now let me just compare the two.
Okay,
The Cybertruck's a truck.
right,
The Model 3 is a sedan.
right.
Huge difference. The sedan is quieter, the ride is more sedate. Um, the it doesn't have as much space. The interior of the Cybertruck is incredibly spacious, very functional, lot of outlets. It's got like a 110-volt outlet. It's got, all it's it's made to road travel.
Right.
And although I'm traveling alone, I just really enjoy the space because I can have whatever I want with me. I can carry, like, for example, I like to take my own coffee maker with me. I it's just magical. It's not as quiet a ride, it's not as smooth a ride. I mean, it's a truck. It's got these bloody great gigantic wheels, with tread as thick as molasses. I mean, but for a truck, it drives beautifully, and for a truck, it's quiet. The sound system is just fantastic. Now, the FSD is not as good on the Cybertruck as it is on the Model 3.
Uh-huh.
FSD on the Model 3 is at next level.
Hmm.
FSD on the Cybertruck, they don't manage the both sides of the journey, like out of the parking lot and on your
Oh,
way
okay.
into the parking lot and into parking. It doesn't handle that as well as the Model 3 yet.
Yeah. Hmm.
And they're going to fix that.
Sure.
But on balance, just the utility of the Cybertruck, it's the way to go on these long trips with a lot of freeways and a lot of and Boca Chica is rough. I'll tell you, Boca Chica is rough. Highway 4 out to Boca Chica can be challenging to even a truck.
I see. Okay.
There are, potholes as deep as a ultra deep gold mine there. Um, and so I just decided the Cyber. The other thing is I don't clean the outside of my Cybertruck.
Yeah. Yeah. No need.
Some people cover it in all kinds of stuff and they polish it and I don't. It's a truck, for God's sake. So I could drive all the way there, drive all the way back, and I don't have to bother about it. The Model 3, I'd be, cleaning. I mean, anyway, I
So
love that Cybertruck.
what I hear you saying a little bit right now, because again, I'm trying to think from a marketing perspective. So what I hear you saying right now is if you're a truck person, this would be a great car. A fantastic car.
I mean, I can't tell you. It's interesting because I drive through, think about it. I drive through South Carolina, Georgia, Alabama, Tennessee, Louisiana, and then Texas.
Right.
This is truck
Truck
country.
country. Yeah, right.
And I can't tell you how many people walk up to me, even today, where the truck's been out for a year,
Yeah, yeah.
and they say, what is this? What do you think of your truck? How do you like it? I mean, guy, I'm pulling out of the hotel last night. I'm pulling yesterday morning, pulling out of the hotel. Guy drives by in a honking big Ford with all the
Right.
stuff on it, and it's gigantic cab and all. And he calls out. He says, "I have one question for you. How do you like your truck?" I said, "It's a dream come true." And he said, but I think it's going to do great. I think
So
it's
then
going to do just
so the second half of that question. So if you already like trucks, you like the big, you like the masculine, you're already into that, and or you have the utility for it, whatever that might be, construction or
yeah.
farm or whatever, then off-road, all those things, it would be a great vehicle. Now, for the person who's thinking about a crossover, they're thinking, I've never owned a truck, or I'm not really a truck person, but it's really cool, it's really cutting
Mm.
edge. The Kardashian has it, whatever, the rappers are all driving them. I really want to get that vehicle. Do you think they would be disappointed after a while?
No,
No.
no.
All right.
It's got a huge cab. It's very comfortable. It's quiet. I take my friends. We're all 70s or 80s somethings. And so we suffer from the hearing loss and we drive, the four of us, the couple, we drive down the road and we talk and we chat and it's beautiful. I have a friend who has a Mercedes, and he's a very liberal guy. He's in his early 80s. He's not a very big Trump fan, to put it very mildly. Straight out of New York, Upper West Side, New York. And, but, he's kind of, he's very impressed with that Tesla. So, against his better judgment, and his wife says, "Buy the shares, man."
Shares, right.
And this is from driving in the truck. So you wouldn't be disappointed buying this truck for a very big car.
Yeah.
5-seater, it's not more than 5 seaters, but it's got great utility when you have to, move things around and stuff like that.
All right, all right. That helps. All right, because everybody's all talking about. I think there's tremendous demand out there. I think there's something else going on, maybe batteries or there might be
There's
all
one thing that's very important.
right, right.
The new charger transformers, the new charger power packs
Right.
are going to transform the chargers into 350 watt,
Yes, right.
and higher charges, and the charging time is going to drop dramatically.
Mhm.
Now, I didn't have a problem with the charging time because I like to stop quite often. I like to take short charging stops, but fairly often. So I will stop every hour and a half for about 15 minutes,
Uh-huh.
charge for,
Right.
15 minutes and then move on. But a lot of people would not like to do that. I would do that if I had a gas car anyway. But the new chargers would allow you to do like 2.5 hours between stops and much shorter stops.
Mhm.
So I think that will make a big difference, but that's going to take a while to come around.
All right. I have breaking news. One of the things you know, Larry, that I try to do, especially when I have you on, is throw out my latest ideas.
Okay. So that I can no, never mind.
whatever you're going to do, Larry, it's okay. I'm okay. So, in doing research for the fires, okay, Brian Wong and I have done this massive amount of research. I think between us, we have over 100 hours of research now into the fires, and into ways to solve this for the future. We think is actually solvable by hardening the houses and hardening the property around the houses. You would never have this problem. Anyway, that's a whole nother story. That video will
That's
become,
only one part of the problem.
but it's
It's a
huge.
very,
Yes,
very important part of the problem.
yes,
And it's been proven, by the way,
yes,
you're 100% right, because there are houses that were hardened in the heart of the worst parts of the fire that
yes.
had
Oh, damn. Yeah,
no
right.
damage at all.
Yes, yes. So anyway, that's just part of our video and part of our study, but they'll be
Yep,
coming out over the next
I'm
couple of,
aligned. I'm
yep.
aligned. Yep.
We'll be coming out in the next couple of days with that, maybe even tonight. We'll see. Anyway, as we were doing the research for the fires, Brian Wong ran across something really funny, and that is DARPA is working on robots, not humanoid robots, just robots that can replace pilots or drivers in all vehicles. And when he first told me that, I'm concentrating on fires, okay? I'm thinking about fire equipment. I'm thinking about being able to take large equipment into the middle of the fire, like a tank, and that wouldn't need a driver because the driver couldn't get into that heat. And so that's where my concentration is. But it wasn't until I was writing this up a little while ago and I thought, oh my gosh, what's the number one job in the world is drivers. And sure, Tesla's intention is to make,
Why do you need a driver?
well, you don't, that's my point. See, that's kind of the funny part is what we think about is autonomy in vehicles. But Larry, 99% of all the vehicles in the world, tractors, large equipment, forklifts, just go down
But
the list.
there are autonomous tractors now.
I know. I'm just saying, though, the robot could, in fact, be a driver. And Tesla has what? Massive amounts of data on driving autonomously.
They don't need a driver.
Who doesn't need a driver?
These vehicles.
If I have a company right now and I have vehicles out and they're making whatever kinds of stops or whatever, maybe 2 years from now I finally buy a Tesla. 5 years from now I finally buy a Tesla. But there's going to be years and years of transition. There's going to be years of transitions for forklifts. There's going to be years of transitions for every vehicle that we just talked about, for ambulances, for, just go down the list. They're not going to all be autonomous for 10, 15, 20 years. But I could put a robot in there tomorrow. Well, not tomorrow, same problem.
Yeah,
Just-
this conversation has been had several times.
Oh, it has. Okay.
Yeah, yeah. I mean,
I
I
thought it
was
was
in this
special
conversation about a year or two ago. And I will tell you that it is very challenging.
to put a humanoid in the driver's seat.
very challenging.
Okay.
It's more challenging than it is to build an autonomous vehicle
Wow. Okay.
because, it's one thing to have an autonomous vehicle with cameras in basically four directions
Right.
or more, actually six
All
or
right.
seven directions, all the way around. It's a whole different thing to add vision to the robot, to the humanoid robot.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, if you want a driving robot, there's what's his name does that right now.
Comma.
Yeah, you put the device in there and it's relatively autonomous, and he thinks he'll get there. That's as good, if not better, than a humanoid because it's got many more sensors. I mean, you'd have to adapt your humanoid as a driver. So if you put more sensors on it
Mhm.
and but then why not just go directly to the controls? Why have him turn the steering wheel and press the brake? Go
Yes.
directly to all cars today have a port that you can plug into and control all the functions of the car from that port.
Right, right. But is it true for all harvesters and all tractors and
Oh
all?
yeah, yeah, yeah. Tractors in particular. Tractors are becoming autonomous more rapidly than cars.
Wow, okay. Because I did a little study on that and it looked to me like all of these guys are doing it, but there's got to be what, a bajillion tractors out there that are not currently autonomous. That's kind of my point is transitional, Larry. I'm looking at the transition.
Yeah, I don't know if they have OB ports, but I can't imagine why they wouldn't. I mean, you know, the, they use the same control devices and the same control mechanisms as cars. I would think they do have OB port. I may be wrong, but so many of them are highly, highly, highly connected. I mean, most tractors have been connected for quite a long time, so I'd be surprised if. Look, there are probably some older tractors, but if you're going to buy a robot, you certainly can afford to buy a robotic tractor.
Well, with a humanoid, then you could not only use it for the tractor, as we always talk about, it would have additional applications as well. He might be able to get out and, solve
The
the.
cost, the cost of a humanoid, building a humanoid versus, using that, buying a new tractor is just there's no comparison.
Mm, mm,
The tractor is a device that's well understood. It's mass produced. It's in its probably its 100th year of cost reduction.
mhm.
A robot has got, many years to go for Wright's Law to get it down to that $30,000, $25,000. Whether it's 5 years or 10 years, I don't know. But
So
when I look,
DARPA must think I have something here because they're working, to try to put it on military vehicles and replace
well,
pilots.
military vehicles are, there are hundreds and hundreds of thousands of military vehicles without any capability. So maybe that's commercial and military are like two different worlds.
Hmm. Hmm. Hmm.
But maybe you've got a point. I'm very skeptical.
Okay. Well, you were talking about cost a minute ago.
But most of these military vehicles, I will tell you from my experience, have got some sort of controller controlling them through that robot's eyes and ears because, there's this issue of, you know, it it's got, mortal danger related to it,
Right.
and you can shoot the wrong people or you can do the
Right.
wrong thing.
Right.
And so it's, a lethal weapon,
Right.
they need control over it. So I don't know. Maybe I'm wrong.
Anyway, all right. Well, that's good debate. Now I want to go on to the next one. This may not be a debate. I was curious because I started doing work, when I wrote the Elon Musk mission, was the first time I tried to figure out what kind of cost savings a manufacturer or distributor, because that's the two things I mostly did in my life. What kind of cost savings? And I know you've done recent work. Then last week, independent of you, I asked Grok. And
You
so
prefer grok to me?
wasn't preferring. I just thought I would ask Grok. So
I would.
Grok came up with a $30,000 a year employee. I'm sorry, a $30 an hour employee would cost the company total about 80,000 a year.
Right,
That sound
85,000.
about
Yeah.
right? Okay, you came 85. All right, very close. Very cool. Now we have a multiplier because I always love to have shortcuts. So I think we could use three. So whatever your hourly is, we can now multiply by three and get the annual amount for that employee all in. Now that doesn't count all the extras that we've
That's
talked.
high. Three is high, but okay. I
Maybe
mean,
90,000 instead of 85 or 90,000 instead of 81 or something, So I could use 2.7, but Larry, people don't
I,
want to multiply by 2.7.
I can, but okay.
I can too, but most people would be like, what? 2.7? Anyway, so we have a multiplier. Um, Here was my real question though. All right, so we get the multiplier. You talked about two shifts. CERN has talked about two shifts in doing some of this analysis.
I talked about three shifts, but
Oh, you talked
okay.
about three. Okay. So in the early days, I think I keep talking about what is Elon going to charge and how are we going to decide how to charge. It would seem to me in the early days, people with three shifts or four shifts would outbid the people with two shifts. This is just the natural way of how things operate. Almost every fast food store in the world is four shifts. Almost every mass market big box store is four shifts. They're not open for four shifts, but they do all the reshelving and all that stuff.
Well, if they're a grocery store, they're open four shifts.
Home Depot is four shifts. I mean, all these places are having to, do all the restocking and stuff in the fourth shift or at night. So you have lots and lots and lots of these low-level employee situations where there's four shifts going all the time. So it would seem like the people that would have the most to gain from these low-level, very hard to fill, very hard to train, high turnover, no funded. I got to tell you, the restaurant, you've probably heard this from your friends over the years, Larry, that the restaurant business is the hardest, nastiest business there is.
Yeah.
Exactly. And so that's partly because of hiring and training these people that last for a week and don't
They
show
go.
up.
They move on. Yeah.
It's also because of the bugs and the rats, but that's a whole
That's
nother,
yeah.
that's a whole nother episode. Anyway, so
Now, wait a minute. Were you talking about the bugs and the rats that come in to dine, or are you talking about anyway? Yeah, come on. Never mind.
yes. Okay. So what do you think? I would think that in the early days, if these things are any good, the first business that you'd go after wouldn't be the manufacturer, although some manufacturers have four shifts. Quite a few manufacturers have four shifts, but you would really be shooting for the folks that have four shifts because you could charge them the moon.
Yeah, I'm not sure you could charge the restaurant folks the moon because if you look at the restaurant folks, they pay these people pennies.
Not in California. Okay, all right, that's true.
Not in California, maybe. Look, I think there's just so much vigorish there. It's just I'm not going to spend the brain power. I mean, I've done the brain power in a manufacturing industrial environment because in an industrial environment, there's a fair amount of very repetitive, fairly exact motions. You
Right,
always put this
right,
screw in that hole, or you always do this. And they use very large robots that can be pre-programmed to do those exact tasks.
right.
But there are many tasks that aren't that exact,
Mhm.
that are not really suitable, and for which they have human beings with two hands.
Mhm.
Now, there you get the highest value return on your investment. In retail, there are a hell of a lot of tasks that are semi-repetitive, that require a certain amount of judgment, but don't pay that well. like, gathering dishes to get and the dirty dishes and then washing them or getting them into the dishwasher. That's actually quite a complex thing to train because it's not precise. It's, the bolt doesn't always go into exactly the same hole. You don't pick up this package and you take it to this particular. So I don't know, maybe look, at the end of the day, every single one of these jobs are going to fall into the hands of a robot. The just question is how quickly will you get the most demand for the most amount of money, in the earliest part of the period, and who has the cash flow
Yeah.
to experiment with it.
Yeah. Well, you look at NVIDIA, who are their customers? They're the customers who can pay the most. They're the customers who have the big bucks, just like you're talking about. So it would seem to me that this would be a similar circumstance. As much as I'd love to see every little T-shirt printing shop and
Right.
every little blow molder and injection motor, down the street, up and down the streets of the industrial parks, be able to get these robots early. I suspect it's going to be these big guys that have.
But put yourself into Elon's shoes, into the manufacturer of the robot's shoes.
Uh-huh.
Do they want to do the onesies and twosies
Yeah.
and support the guy that needs all the support in the world, or they want to do the hundreds and 200s
Right.
and thousands and 2000s and
Do the same.
10,000s with people with enormous cash resources and with, a massive cash flow? I don't think that the individual homeowner or the small business person represents anything of that quality.
Yeah, no, I agree with you. I'm saying as much as I'd like to see those guys be able to be first in line because they would obviously benefit massively from it. I think it will turn out that it's the big guys who get the first tranche.
But here's a prediction that I will make that will probably support what you say, but in a way that you may not have been thinking about. There are going to be enormous numbers of new enterprises that we have no clue what they look like or how they work, spring out of this new product or this product class.
Yes.
I don't even know what they look. It's like, when the internet came along, the predictions about what it was going to be were so wildly out of whack. And yet it became, the everything. So I think the robot is going to be the same thing. I think we're going to see a massive sea change in, the kinds of businesses there are out there. Anyway.
Yeah, I was thinking the other day that maybe eventually, because it won't happen right away, but eventually American streets might be as clean as Singapore streets without sending people to jail for putting bubble gum on the street. Yeah.
Wouldn't that be nice? And American roads may not have the potholes.
That's right. That may be true as well. Yes, who knows what could happen. All right. So Larry, in our green room experience before we came on, we practically spent more time in the green room than we have on the show.
Yes, we did. Yeah.
Talking about this entire, wow, we're going through this transition in 5 days, Larry. I can't wait to get this man out of the White House. Yeah, I know I should be going more positive and saying I can't wait to get this other man in the White House. But anyway, let's not get diverted by what our current president has been doing to the country over the last couple of days. Let's talk about the transition to a new economy, because the old economy, you predicted in 2023, along with like the entire world, that there would be a recession. I'll just say it really quietly. I didn't. I said there wouldn't be one. Anyway, but in 2024, we both said there would be a recession, or at least a flatlining and probably a recession. And according to the economists, we didn't have one. But early last year, you and I both started talking about something else. Tell me about it.
Yeah, I mean, what there was is, a tale of two worlds, a tale of two cities, a tale of two economies. The economy of molecules was in recession. Whether you made motor cars, or whether you made houses, or whether you made
Chotskys.
furniture, washing machines, refrigerator, you were in recession
And you still are.
and are still in recession. If you made Luftgeschäft, is what I call it, if you made software, if you made something of the mind using electrons, man, you were Katie by the doors. I mean, you were printing money.
Right.
If you combine the two, it kind of wobbled along just at the edge of, just above the recession limits.
Right. Right.
But it didn't help the laborer. And, that explains the whole election.
Yeah.
Nobody was going to vote. Nobody who worked for a job in the molecular world was going to vote for the outgoing guys. I won't call them clowns, but it was almost clownish.
Yeah.
With the one guy being, too old to figure it out, the other being too clueless to figure it out. I mean, between the two of them, clownish. I know I'm going to get a lot of hate mail for this. What the hell?
Oh, well.
It just adds to all that stuff in the hate mail bin. But we're not out of it yet. We're still in that vein.
Yeah. Yeah. Now, Trump will inherit one benefit, I believe, and I could be wrong on this, but the durables business can recover.
Yeah.
Assuming that the folks who have been dying to get that refrigerator open their purse and decide to get one.
Do you think it will recover in a very high interest environment?
It's going to be hard, but the interest rate, we've talked about that a little bit, Larry.
Yeah.
The interest rates could come down really, really fast if the bond guys, because the Fed will keep dropping interest rates, I suppose. Not this time.
Well, bonds are about to hit 5%, so
I know.
I'm not sure you're right.
Well, so my point is that I believe is that the bond guys are waiting for proof. They want to see that the Trump administration is serious about the things that they have said they're going to do with regard to DOGE, that the Republican Congress will support them in DOGE in reducing the deficit. No,
I don't think that. I think it's way past the point where they have to see them being serious. I think they got to not only put up, but I mean, they're actually going to have to deliver. It doesn't matter what they say. It doesn't even matter what they do. What matters is if the deficit starts going down. Because it's right now, this is no longer a matter of what people think. It's a matter of physics.
right, right.
Yeah. The demand for the demand for debt, the incurring of debt is just growing, like a huge mountain, and people are demanding more money for it. And, the Fed's trying to find a way to navigate this thing, but the government goes on spending, and the state and local governments keep spending even more.
Yeah, at least as we talked about the other day, Larry, at least the state and local governments can't print money and they have to balance their budgets. So at least
you say that, but where does the money for the states
federal government? Yes, but
that's the point.
That's the point, is the federal government has to stop that. Then the states will have to figure it out. I mean, they just have to.
The federal government has to stop so many things. That's just one of them. But we federalized so much of the economy.
Right.
And having federalized it, we are now subsidizing it out of debt.
Yeah. Yeah.
And so there's almost no facet of the economy that isn't over its skis in terms of expenses.
Yeah. Yeah. So I'm just so at some point now, maybe it won't be this year. Maybe it'll take a full year before the bond market finally believes that the deficit's coming down and starts to, relax a little bit on these interest rates. But the interest rates were at 3.7, 3.6 not that long ago, just because they thought the Fed was going to reduce rates. So I think there is fluidity in the bond market's thinking, because at the end of the day, they're just like every other investor, fear and greed. So at some point, the greed or the fear will kick in.
Not convinced that
No.
it's going to be that easy to get the numbers down. I mean, I've looked at the numbers very
Yeah.
carefully. I don't see I don't see the trillion. They were talking about 2 trillion. They looked at it and they go, whoa. And now they're talking about 1 trillion. I don't see the trillion. I do not see the trillion because so much of the real cost is, as I've said a million times on your program, healthcare
And so,
and social security. And social security is not really the problem. The out years on healthcare are frightening as
right,
hell.
right.
And when you look at what happened in Britain, for example, to the national health system, I mean, it's just clear to me that there's this problem. And part of the problem is the health. I'm overweight. You're not, but 80% of Americans are.
There's a little bit here, Larry. So, Larry, you did a video. Did that video ever drop with
It's
Dutch?
about to drop next day or so. Yeah, you'll be the first to know.
Okay, thank you for letting me know as soon as it drops. So I want to watch it.
So that's a video where Dutch Rojas explains to us how to solve the problem of the burgeoning healthcare costs in this country. And it's not easy, but I will tell you, it is something that Doge could make happen,
Mhm.
something that this administration could actually make happen.
Wow, very cool, very cool. All right, so we have 5 days to wait. There's going to be 100 things for the president to sign on his desk on the very first day. Unfortunately, about 40 of those will just be undoing what Biden has done in the last 2 weeks.
Isn't that incredible? It's incredible.
I figured it out, Larry, though. I know why. I know why the five past presidents, none of them get along. Are you ready?
Each one imposes these things on the other. No.
No, no, no. Because their wives hate each other.
But Trump had this whole conversation with Obama. They seem to be pretty happy. And I know that George Bush and Clinton became firm friends.
Yeah, yeah, I know. No, no, the past presidents tend to be, they hang together. In fact, politicians, they'll have the big fight on the floor, and then they'll go out and have a beer together.
Yeah,
But
I've heard that. I've heard in Washington it's no longer the case, but okay.
just in general, huh? Yeah, that's a shame. So you have the
Yeah.
Republican pub and the Democrat pub now, huh? That's not good. We need to fix that.
No, it's not good. Somebody said that in the old days, people would have to come to Washington and live in Washington.
Oh
And
yeah.
so they're all living there together and they became more friendly. Now they fly in and fly out, fly in and fly out.
Yeah.
And it's become very, very, very fraught, the relationship. What do I know? I don't know, maybe.
All right. So let's see. We have a very, the market is just like all over the place. Tesla's all over the place. We had
It
this
was up and down and up and down. I
jump,
mean,
yeah, jumped yesterday at the end of the session, and then it was up all night. And then it was, up in the morning and even more, and got all the way up to 420, and then fell down again. I think it was actually oh, what was it now? There was something this afternoon that happened. Now I'm forgetting what it was. Oh no. Like everything, the entire stock market just collapsed all at the same time. Oh, I know. It was when Microsoft said they were suspending hiring in that one department. But that was on top of Meta saying that they were laying off 4,000 and Southwest saying that they were laying off. So people were speculating at least a little bit that that was a little worrisome if there was, like three major companies in one day announcing a slowdown in the hiring cycle.
Look, AJ did a study of Audi.
Mhm.
Was
Yeah.
it Audi or BMW?
Well, Audi's the one that is now smaller than
No, no, he did a study of BMW. Yeah. So and then the news came today that Audi sold less cars than Tesla.
right.
And not because Tesla's sales grew, but Audi's sales went down. And I never did. I still intend to do a study of the European auto market, but it is so bad that I actually can't gin up the courage to actually write the piece because things are so bad in Europe,
Yeah.
so bad. It's like the whole continent's falling apart. And so, I mean, I don't know, it's a pretty serious case. And and we have to try and figure out what's going to happen in China. Is China going to actually survive? Is the economy going to grow, or are they on the really serious downslope? And you can listen to people who say, "Oh, economy is fantastic. The economy is fantastic. They're killing it. They're going to get out of this problem. They're going to take off." And you hear somebody else saying, "Wow, look at these numbers. They're going out of business. They're having an going out of business sale. And so you don't know what's happening in China.
Right.
It's a tale of two Chinas.
Right. 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 Yeah, I think
But
from everything that I'm reading on China, at least, I don't have anybody. I have somebody who does business in China, so I could ask. But from what I'm seeing, I mean, I think an economy like that won't collapse overnight necessarily, but they could be a Japan because of their population stagnation combined with this real estate problem. And of course, real estate problem is going to be exacerbated by their population declining because there'll be less
or
demand,
they'll go to war.
or they'll go to war. But what are you going to do when you go to war? You're not going to capture the ladies and bring them home. So you're still going to have a declining population.
No, but they can go to war before their population declines.
To do what?
To take over Taiwan as the great and to establish the control of the South China Sea.
I'm just counting on it, Larry. I'm counting on the fact that Taiwan is smart enough. I've done a lot of business in Taiwan. These guys are smart guys. I believe they've got that those hills, those mountains are filled with drones. I really believe they've got it.
Well, I don't know. Any war in Taiwan will be catastrophic for the world order. It's going to reset the world order, and things will be very serious. A war in Taiwan will be much worse for the world than the war
Ukraine.
in Ukraine, and that war's been pretty bad. So
Speaking of
I
which, speaking of which, Larry, President Trump, the new President Trump, said a couple of weeks ago that they better get those hostages back before he took his first day in office. And magically, magically, apparently, there's going to be hostage return.
it's not a done deal yet. It's not done. I've heard a lot of I've some channels to Israel and some open issues and so on. But yeah, I mean, it looks good. It looks very good.
Well, I spend a lot of time in my religion talking about the fear of God. And most humans on the planet no longer have the fear of God, but apparently some of them might have the fear of Trump.
That's true. That's true.
We'll see what happens in that regard. All
I
right.
have to say that he's conducting himself far more presidentially than he did in the first round.
Well, I have never, ever, I'm almost as old as you, Larry. Do you know that you're going to be 3 years older than me in a couple of weeks, a few
Yeah.
weeks? It's going to
Yeah.
be, yeah, at least for 2 weeks. Anyway, looking over, I've paid attention to politics since Goldwater. That was the first year that I actually worked the precinct, 64. And I was like, I don't know, I was like 16 or something. And so I've really paid attention my entire life. I have never, two things I've never seen before: the nastiness of the outgoing administration in terms of what they're trying to do to disrupt the new administration. And the second thing I've never seen before is an administration coming in that's so prepared.
I agree with the second part of that, and I agree with the first part of that, but there's a very good reason for it. There isn't a president running the country.
Oh, yeah, that part. Oh, yeah.
There, you know, a president would have a more measured view of history. A president would not act in that way. A president would say, yeah, I'd love to do that, but, blah, blah, blah. If you're not the president, but you're running the business,
Yeah.
it's like you don't have the maturity or the sense to think about the future. You're just thinking about,
Mhm.
getting your little, scoring your score.
Mhm.
So I think that's the reason that we have the situation, which is really quite unprecedented.
Mhm. Mhm. Yeah. So, and then the second, and as you point out, the second part where they're so prepared. I mean, it's just really amazing.
Yeah, and I think the first couple of weeks are going to be undoing what this crazy administration is doing.
I agree with you. All right. Well, let's take a look at the numbers real quick
Yeah.
here. All right. So today, the Dow ended up. It was actually up most of the day. The Dow was actually up most of the day, up 0.52%. The Nasdaq
Mhm.
ended up down after being up and then down and then up and then down, ended up down 0.23. So both of them not that much. S&P down even less. I mean, I'm sorry, up even less, up only 11%. I'm 0.11, I'm sorry, 0.11%. And Tesla, which have been up all day,
No doubt.
but all of the Mag 7 did the same thing. They all took a dive
But
at the
Tesla was down more than the Mag 7, notwithstanding the fact that it was up during the day.
Yeah, so it was, I mean, Meta was down more, and yeah, but the rest of the Mag 7, it actually was down more than the rest, except for Meta. So at down 1.72. But all of them, you can see the pattern is exactly the same, just following each other around, although Tesla had started out with a very nice, like 2% jump early in the morning. So again, I have my theory about what took place with regard to that decision by Microsoft to stop hiring. Um, might have scared the market. It turns out that a lot of that came back later in the day as well. So in the last few minutes, there was a curve back up again. And Tesla, though, ended up in the after hours down another 0.61. So a buck or, buck and change.
Yeah. Well, maybe we're seeing the great rotation.
Maybe we're seeing a rotation. It's possible. I can't figure out how it's going to happen, Larry. These top seven are they're earning so much money and they're growing so fast, and I don't see how that's
But
going to.
but their EPS is so high. Oh,
Yeah.
sorry, they're sorry, I'm not the EPS.
PE.
The valuation in relation to the EPS is so high that they could go down, their EPS could go up
Yeah.
and they could still come down, you know, not, I mean, 30 to 50%, and they would still be aligned with the rest of the market.
Yeah. Yeah. Yeah.
It's the rate of growth. And the question is the market revising its view of the rate of growth of those stocks? And if they are, then they'll come down.
And the other question is, of course, like we just said a few minutes ago, will the world of atoms be coming back? Because until the world of atoms comes back, there'll be no place to rotate into.
Yeah, I mean, if the world of atoms comes back, it'll be because this president is very, very focused on the job of the average of the jobs of the average American, which is why he was elected
Right.
and which is what he's going to remain true to. And I will tell you that, of his entire cabinet, there's really only Elon Musk who has the experience of what it takes to build a company in the world of atoms.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
Think about it.
Yeah.
All
Yeah.
these other guys. I mean, he's Treasury Secretary. He deals in stocks and bonds and foreign currency. He made most of his money out of foreign currency
Right.
trades.
Vice president is a same thing. Yeah.
Farmers, no, he's yeah, yeah. But, but Vivek also made money out of molecules. He made money out of drugs
Drugs. Right. Yeah.
very, very intelligently.
Right.
So those guys actually do have the secret. The question is, can he persuade anybody?
Yeah, exactly. Exactly right. Something's wrong with my computer here. Okay. The SEC has sued Elon Musk for alleging a failure to properly disclose his Twitter ownership 5 days before the end of the.
Yeah, yeah, yeah. Well, they had to get that in before the change. Yeah.
Oh my gosh. All right. Okay. So bonds, where are we? Oh my gosh. So they had gone down today, just a tad, which I think is why the market didn't do better, is because even though
That's why the Tesla stock went down. The
well,
SEC action,
oh,
I
what?
bet you the SEC action was leaked by
Oh,
the SEC to several major players in the market.
be
I
could be.
would love, I would love to be the incoming SEC
Yeah.
and say, guys, don't destroy any
Right.
documents.
Right.
Let's have a look at this.
Right. Holy cow. All right. So as we spoke, though, Larry, the 10-year got better.
Ah,
It went from slightly up to unchanged. So maybe if we stand here a little longer, it'll go
I
down.
don't know if that constitutes better.
Yeah, we're still sitting at 4.788. That's
Bloody,
that's
I
not
mean,
that's not good.
not good.
Not good. Not good. Okay, let's see. Oil. Oh, I'm sorry. Yeah, oil. Oil's next. Uh, so the Russia thing continues. There's still concern about, putting on these tariffs. Another thing that Biden did at the very end of his term, uh, not tariffs, putting on more enforcement of the existing.
Yeah,
Uh,
the ships,
yep, yep.
this fleet, the Ghost Fleet. Yeah.
So we're sitting at 77.90 on Texas Intermediate, and Brent actually is down a little bit in pre-market at 80.32. Natural gas, as we know, goes up and down a lot. It's sitting at $3.93 though. That's pretty high for natural gas.
Yeah.
Gold is up a little bit. It had gone over 2,700. Now it's back barely under at 26.92. So again, that's probably somewhat related to the dollar and the bonds, because the bonds make the
It's China buying gold.
yeah,
The theory is that China's just accumulating gold to
lots of gold.
get rid of the dollar.
Yeah, 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 exactly.
Renminbi backed with gold.
And copper basically unchanged in the pre-market at $4.34. And Bitcoin had a good day, up 3,600 at 96,550. So I have it in two trenches, Larry. I have Bitcoin trades between 86 and 94, and then it has a different one which is 94 to 100 and whatever. And so right now it's barely moved back into that higher
Mm.
that higher range, but it seems to have these two ranges that it trades in.
But there's this guy who's trading in Bitcoin or who's building a company based upon Bitcoin. He has like 2.5% of the total world supply of Bitcoin, of the total supply of Bitcoin that will ever be. So, when you get to that situation, then you have to question the efficacy of Bitcoin.
Talking about some guy named Saylor. Is that is that the
That's
guy?
the guy. Yeah.
Yeah, right. Yes. And on the equities, you've got and by the way, I agree with you.
It's
Pre-market,
going to be an awfully big bust when it busts.
man.
Yeah.
Um, Dow up 0.1%, S&P up 0.08%, and the NASDAQ up 0.15%. So marginally moving positively here
Yeah.
in the pre-market. Last words of wisdom for the crowd, Larry?
Last words of wisdom, FSD is becoming a serious product. Serious product. I mean, I could not have done this 5,000, 6,000 mile trip, in a week, without FSD. I couldn't have done it. It was just sole driver on my, just amazing, just amazing. It's not perfect yet, but it's getting to close perfect. It's closing in on it.
Closing in on it. Yeah, you were talking about 𝐸𝐼. He said the other day that he thinks it's still 5 years away, and I laughed. I thought he's betting against Elon.
I know. Well, he has to be taken very seriously.
He does, yeah.
Look, there are a huge number of corner cases, and you only meet two or three of them a day when you're driving. But they're not necessarily the same two or three as everybody else is meeting. So that's the question: how broad a category and how easy it is to solve.
I think
So
that,
I've got to respect him. He's a brilliant guy, and he knows a lot about what he's talking about.
all right, Larry, as always, it is a great pleasure to have had you here. And to all of you out there, it has been a great pleasure to talk to you for this 45 minutes. Bye for now.